about them?
We'll talk about the Normans just because, well, we wouldn't have Europe the way it is today without them. So, yeah, this Viking group, right? This group that kind of stems from these Vikings. It's important to mention just because, well, we get an invasion of England. England gets invaded for the first time ever. And we'll talk about it throughout the remainder of the year. England's going to be in a lot of wars, but they never get invaded. They never get invaded. We get to World War II, yeah, they'll be bombarded by aerial strikes by the Nazis, sure, but right, nothing like when it comes to this invasion across the English Channel. And here in 1066, which we'll talk about, the only time ever that they actually get taken over. So I think it's important to mention a little bit of the direction here for England. Right, we'll talk about their political system then too, how it's transforming, right, transitioning here. And we kind of get a little taste of what the Roman Empire had when it comes to a representative government, but not totally there yet, right? It's kind of laying the groundwork out. Anyway, real quick, so building off that assignment that we had yesterday with the Crusades, right? The last part of it, which some of you did a good job with it, some of you did, and some of you didn't complete it yet. But anyway, so the last part that I want to mention about success or failure, it's opinion, right? It's opinion based, whatever you think, just have some sort of information back in your response. And how many bell ringers do we have for this week? I think 3, right? Okay, perfect.
Does anyone else have to?
I don't care this at all.
Yeah, I saw the truck on myself. It's like, no. Now, good response though. Yes, only 2?
I have to.
Even after today?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, okay. Do we hold them on to next week then? Okay, just look out for next week, add these points to next week. Okay, we'll do that. Just hold on, no, obviously, we'll get rid of them. But anyway, work on this one now. Thank you, man, I appreciate it. All right, so I'll give you guys a few minutes here to work on it. We'll get to it.
West Perry tonight, huh? Gonna take it to him or what?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Huh?
Be good because we actually played a decent team.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys, get working here. Get working. Are we done? Are we done already? Chase, yeah, you're done already? Oh, okay. I guess we could go over it in a while. You're not? Well, there's a lot of talking. I had no idea. Oh, okay. Okay. All right, yeah, we're good now here, huh? Yeah, okay, let's get to it.
So Crusades, the Holy Wars, right? How'd they begin again? How'd they begin? Ben, you playing some sort of video game? Of course you were. Guess that, huh? You turned in your assignment yet? Maybe you should be doing that instead of playing some sort of game. Okay, great. All right, so when it comes down to it, guys, success or failure, Crusades, the Holy Wars, how'd they start again? how did this begin? What occurred? What happened here? Jason? Yeah, good job. So, I don't really, when it comes to names, I get always told that way all around here, but this one you probably know. It's one of your vocab terms, right? Naomi?
Urban.
Yeah, Pope Urban II, good job. Anyway, Pope Urban II calls for the Crusades because, well, let's face it here, the Western European kingdoms are all broken apart at the end of whose reign? What was that guy's name again? That was so strong and successful. Go ahead, Brody.
Charlemagne.
Charlemagne, good job. We'll actually mention Charlemagne here today. He has an agreement with a few of these Viking groups, which is going to create the Normans we're going to talk about here. Again, in today's lesson. Anyway, what happened? What happened? So what empire is here down in this parts of, well, Southeast Europe? Go ahead here. Austin?
Wait, was it the Muslims?
No, okay, this empire here, they're Christian, just a little bit of an Orthodox version of it. Austin again.
Byzantine.
The Byzantine Empire, good job. So they were getting attacked, right, by these Seljuk Turks, which were Islamic Muslim raiders, right? Islamic religion starts to oppose itself, starts to appear in parts of the Byzantine Empire, North Africa, parts of Europe. The Pope is not happy about it, is he? No, right? He needs strength here in Europe. The only way to do that is to bring all these kingdoms together, right? And he does that through Christianity, right? Through religion. Anyway, he initiates the Crusades, not only just to protect the Byzantine Empire, but to take back what? To take what? Go ahead, Naomi.
Jersey.
Yeah, Jerusalem, right? The Holy Land, good. Anyway, as this takes place, there's a lot of terrible, terrible things that occurred during the Crusades. What are a few things that we watched in the video yesterday that stuck out to you and said, wow, I probably wouldn't have survived the Crusades here. Brody?
People didn't even make it there, like they died from like hunger, illness and like illnesses on the way there.
Yeah, good job, right? Let's face it, that's a long pilgrimage, isn't it? Right? You're walking a long, long distance. Anyway, how long would it take to walk to the Holy Land from parts of Western Europe? Go ahead, Braden.
3 years.
3 years, right? Good. So there you are with low food, low water, right? If you had any, and in many cases, starvation. Cannibalism, again, when it comes to this rumor, this myth about cannibalism, I told you to say, hey, put an asterisk by it, put it in quotes, because there's not a lot of backing of this, right? It's definitely a story to say, hey, cannibalism, right? Oh my gosh, but in any case, you can see and imagine just a lot of people, a lot of crusaders dying just with malnutrition, right? Just with really no food at all, starving to death, right? We talked a little bit too about dehydration, right? And how there is limited water. Even if they got their hands on water, it might be filled with bacteria. People dying of sickness, disease. So talk about dysentery. What is that? My gosh, what is this? Naomi, you're killing it today. Good job.
It gives you like extremely sick.
Oh, yeah, pretty much die from literally the inside out. Explosive diarrhea. Oh gosh, you can only imagine. What a terrible way to go. Anyway, there's many other things too that cause the downfall to a lot of these crusaders, right? You could also do what? What was an alternative route to the Crusades? Brody, that was quick.
Sailboat, those people, like, there's no like advanced maps, so they take rocks or get shore.
Yeah, right. You could sail. Come sail away. Come sail. Okay, good song. Anyway, you go across the Atlantic down into the Mediterranean. But again, when it comes to ship making at the time, it wasn't near in advance, right? Instruments to use to navigate the open waters, forget about it. So a lot of these crusaders just died on their way there. Didn't even get there. All right, we focused on 4 crusades, right? 4. The first crusade, what happened? What happened with the first crusade here? Go ahead, Jason.
They successfully took the Holy Land.
Yeah, good job, right? So the Crusaders do take the Holy Land. All right, do they hold on to it? No, Second Crusade proves that they lost it. Darn it. Okay, who is that enemy here of the Crusaders? Who is that military leader we talked about quite a bit, and the video mentioned too? And who is that guy of the Islamic raiders? Go ahead. Saladin, right? Saladin, right? This guy here was strong. He united a lot of the Islamic groups together throughout the Middle East, parts of North Africa, parts of Asia, and, well, yeah, he takes back the Holy Land. All right, good. Third Crusade comes around. This is where things get a little bit more hairy, right? So who's a part of this one? Who's a part of this one here? Jason, go ahead.
Richard Lionheart.
Yeah, it's Richard the Lionheart of England. Okay, so we'll kind of go back in time a little bit today with our lesson, but it's okay. It's okay. It all kind of fits in what we're talking about. So Richard the Lionheart, big name. Okay, we've got Frederick Barbarossa of the Holy Roman Empire, right? We've got Philip II of France, right? All these kingdoms again coming together to try to take back the Holy Land. What happened? What happened? Did they get it? Did they capture it in the Third Crusade? Did they do it? Jason again. All right.
No, but they came to peace terms with Saladin so that they could, so like pilgrims could actually make their way to the Holy Land, so they kind of had like an agreement.
This guy right here, perfect. Student of the month, maybe, keeps it up. All right, looks like Xavier Worthy yesterday. Anyway, so it comes to the Third Crusade, right? As they're making their way down, okay, a lot of turmoil, a lot of death, right? Again, just getting there is a problem in itself, but Saladin protects it. So there's kind of a peace negotiation, somewhat, where they're going to allow the Crusaders to pilgrimage to the Holy Land, right? So it's kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's a total win for either side here, but there was an agreement. We even talked about Richard the Lionheart, right? He goes down somewhat in a, well, he was struck by an arrow, right? He also gets sick a little bit here, and Saladin actually does what? What does he send to Richard the Lionheart, which is kind of shocking. These are enemies here, right? Peyton! Yeah, his doctor says, hey, we're gonna get you back up on your feet. And it just goes to show with two rivals, there could still be respect, right? There could still be respect. And these two leaders definitely respected one another. To a point where, yeah, they're gonna try to get them back on their feet to fight another day. All right, anyway, last one, Fourth Crusade we talked about. What happened here? This is a little bit different than what we've been mentioning with the other Crusades. Why?
They attacked the Byzantine Empire?
Yes, good, okay, the kingdoms here to Western Europe, right? The Pope orders this crusade not to the Holy Land. What? Not to the Holy Land? Okay, but somewhere else. Go to the Byzantine Empire. They go to Constantinople, right? So this is a key city here, especially when it comes to trading, right? Let's face it, right? The water's treacherous. Okay, a lot of people can't travel the water just yet, the Mediterranean Sea. So if you're getting any resources from Asia, right, it has to come through this land route. And you've got it, the only way to get through to the rest of Europe is through Constantinople, right? Why would the Pope, Christianity, attack the Byzantine Empire? Christianity, but a little twist, right? Okay, go ahead.
Maybe so they can get there a lot quicker. So.
Okay.
Blocking them.
Okay, all right, I like where you're going with that. Okay, so you mean, the means of trade, right? So yeah, you're gonna set up a little bit more connection when it comes to trade. Constantinople is definitely important when it comes to trade. Okay, that's why I was hitting on that. Brody?
To damage their supply and everything really good, so not Christianity.
Ooh, yes, good. So were you safe even though you were representing Christianity? If there's a little twist to it. Oh, no, you weren't. The Pope does not like you branching away from his teachings, right? The Pope does not like you branching away from the Catholic Church, even in just the slightest bit, right? It's gonna anger, right? So yeah, this Fourth Crusade was more of an internal struggle between these Christian crusaders, right? The Orthodox Church, I'm sure you guys maybe heard of Christian Orthodox Church, right? Anyway, this Orthodox Church, their architecture is a little bit different. You guys ever look at Russian architecture? They have these nice, cool spiral domes, right? Whenever you look at some of their buildings, it's a little bit different, even in their architecture. But in any case, the Pope's not liking that this branch of Christianity is starting to form with the Byzantine Empire, right? And it just goes to show this bloody mess. So was it a success or failure? What did he write? Eli, what did you write? Failure. Okay, because the millions and millions of people that died, right? That's probably a lot of it, right? And that video yesterday that we watched, that we talked about, that we broke down together, kind of emphasizes these big failures. Jason.
I don't like every action kind of just came undone eventually. Like.
Okay.
They kind of lost it.
It's like a tug of war match, right? You know what I mean by that? It's just back and forth and back and forth.
Lost a lot of resources. Didn't have the stuff necessary to be able to continue crusading, so.
Okay, yeah. Okay, good. Chloe? Okay, okay, all right. Anybody say it was a success? Anybody? Oh, let's hear it. Go ahead, Chase.
I mean, they were able to capture Jerusalem, for a tiny bit, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, and they united a lot of people together to do one thing.
Whoa, Okay, all right. I do think the Crusades get a bad rap, right? You hear about all the ugliness of it, right? All of the death, all of the destruction. But, but let's think about some of the pros here. And I recommend you guys write some of this down, right? Number one here, obviously, when you're expanding to other areas that are uncharted, unknown, right? What does that help? When it comes to map making, right? Now all of a sudden, you know a little bit about these locations, right? Now all of a sudden, you know how to find a proper pathway down to the Holy Land, down to connect with other parts of the world that you've never interacted with before, right? Yeah, that's important when it comes to trade, right? Trade. So the Crusades, I know it sounds unbelievable, but trade, one of the big benefits here of these holy wars. Now all of a sudden you have access to the Middle East. Oh, Middle East connects to Asia. Oh my gosh, okay, now you can bring in resources that you've never seen before. Right, and as you're bringing these resources to your marketplaces, what does that do? Brings in a lot of money, huh? A lot of money. These marketplaces start to change, they start to alter. Prosperity starts to pick up again all throughout Europe, because now you have means of trade that you never had before. I know the fourth crusade, the third crusade, sorry, when it came to sailing the Mediterranean Sea, a lot of people died trying to do that. But what does that do? Practice makes, I won't say perfect here, but practice navigating the seas is important. Right now, all of a sudden, you can have a means of trade, not just through land, but by water. Right now, you're accessing ports and points all across Europe, all across North Africa, the Middle East, and again, enhancing your means of trade. That's important. Chase, you said what? All these kingdoms all throughout Western Europe, and they started to do what? Come together, unite, right? Unite. We'll talk about it throughout the rest of this course. Are all these countries in Europe ever gonna get along? No, right? Even still to this day, let's face it, there's wars going on today. There's one in particular, Russia, Ukraine. But when it comes to these countries, they don't like each other totally. But back then, they had to. They did because of Christianity. All right, I know I beat up the Crusades quite a bit. I just want to hear what you guys had to say. And it is a span of over 200 years. So to say, hey, one lesson on it, moving on, we just can't do that, right? Anyway, we're going to move on, guys, and talk today about the we're going to talk today about the expansion of England, right? How England becomes a little bit more of a stronger society, right? And how their politics start to change. Here, real quick, I'm going to take out these two guys because you'll read about them. Well, you'll see about them in the lesson. Anyway, these are the few terms here I want you to know. Definitely William the Conqueror. What a cool name, right? Okay, this empire we're going to mention about here within England is going to grow. It's not just going to be that rock up there, right, in the North Sea. It's going to expand into parts of France, right? It's going to be a massive empire here at the start. And it's all thanks to the Normans, okay? So the biggest thing I want you to write for William the Conqueror is that he is the leader of the Normans, and he'll later be known as the King of England because he will take it over. Jeez. All right. So like I mentioned, when it comes to England, they are protected. And we'll mention about that here, protection soon. Common law, the Magna Carta, Parliament. Oh my gosh. Okay, so things are starting to change, right? It's no longer just this feudal system in control, right? Things are starting to change for the benefit of people, right? Maybe this absolute rule isn't so absolute anymore. Anyway, there you go. When you get to the Magna Carta, right? Once you do search this, okay, make sure you put the Great Charter, right? The Great Charter for the Magna Carta, right? I want you guys to make sure you know that and write that down at some place, somewhere within the definition. All right, there you go. Yeah, the water fountain.
Yeah, go ahead. Just go get it from your locker. You're good. I got you. Bless you. You guys need another minute yet? Okay, no problem. I play music for you, but I'm recording right now and I don't want YouTube to take me down. I have too many subscribers. You know what I mean, Eli? I mean, I can't let them down here, Chase. See what I'm saying? Huh?
Videos were really good.
What old video?
Bowman Show?
Wait a minute, you're listening to the Bowman Show, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
podcast.
me and Kate were watching it on Discovery.
Good times, good
And
times.
the wrestling video.
WWE match.
No.
Yeah.
Yep, I hung up my wrestling shoes. No more real wrestling for me. I just do that amateur stuff, right, Brody? All right, okay, so we'll talk about these here terms through the lesson today. Does anybody want any clarity on any of these before we move on? Are we good? The Plantagenet Empire, we'll talk about this empire here soon, but again, when it comes to England and parts of France, well, this is an empire where the Normans originated from, which is northern France, and expands even down pretty much, I want to say almost the whole part of the whole western part of France. It'll lead all the way even to parts of northern Spain, right? And this is a big chunk of area, again, that the Normans, England would have dominant control of. This is important to know because there's gonna be a war between France and England. It's gonna be known as the what? Does anybody know this war? Early on. Early on. We'll talk about it here soon, probably next week here. Jason? Yes, the 100 Years' War. This war lasted over 100 years. Unbelievable. So we'll talk about it. Anyway, real quick, let's get to it. We're going to talk about the Normans today. And we're actually going to kind of go back in time a little bit. I know it sounds crazy, but with the Crusades going on, I mean, this spans over 200 years, like I said. And like I mentioned, when it comes to talking about the Crusades, we could talk about it for literally the whole year if we wanted to, because there's so much, well, I won't say there's a lot of information, but it's definitely fascinating. It's interesting to talk about. Anyway, as this is all going down, well, even a little bit before it, okay, I do want to talk about the Normans. So the Normans, interesting story. And this is kind of how we have languages and dialects all throughout Europe. And we understand these languages as different, and as these Vikings, literally Vikings, right? Start to intervene and start to get involved in certain other kingdoms throughout Western Europe, and it changes the dynamics. It changes it, right? So there is some factors here that are very similar between
a country like France, country like eventually Germany, right? Spain, Italy, you name it. England, right? But at the same time, there's a lot of key differences because, well, the Vikings, the similarities here, they just start to involve themselves. Anyway, real quick, William the Conqueror, Battle of Hastings, 1066. So this is important because this is the first time and only time this small little rock here, England, will get into England, right? So yeah, I guess you could say the Roman Empire, yeah, they took over parts of England here before, right? Setting up and establishing the city that we know as London, okay? But in any case, as we get through the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages here, right? These people, Anglo-Saxons, these tribal people, right? They're focused here with no danger, none at all, right? In any case, as we talked about Charlemagne, right, the Carolingian Empire, right? This was dominant, this was very, very strong, but there's still a fear of Vikings, right? These Vikings were still out there, right? Were they raiding and trying to take over Charlemagne? Well, not necessarily. Okay, there were some instances here where Charlemagne's like, wow, as we're growing as an empire, we need a lot of protection, right? It's very difficult to have these fortifications everywhere. So he decides, listen, okay, no more fighting with these groups of people, these Vikings, especially here in northern France. Right, you guys know where Normandy is? Yeah? What do we know about Normandy other than the Normans here, which we're talking about? Brody?
The D-Day.
Yeah, the D-Day invasion, good job. So we'll talk about this later down the year, right? Obviously closer towards the end of the year. But in any case, Normandy, right here in northern France, there's a Viking group. Anyway, they're dangerous. Oh, they were strong, okay? And Charlemagne, especially him, he says, listen, I don't want to constantly send my military attention here. Right, there's a bigger threat to Christianity, and we already talked about it, was what? Islamic Muslims, right? So these Muslim raiders. So Charlemagne's like saying, hey, this empire is massive, okay? And we need to do something here to make sure that we can keep somewhat the peace with the Vikings, right? These Normans. So he actually grants some land. He says, hey, just take a part of this land, okay? We'll wash our hands from it, and we'll just move on, right? We'll live in peace, solidarity, right? And even some of these Viking groups start to merge within the Carolingian Empire. Anyway, when it comes down to it, the Normans were granted this land, given to them, right? So that just goes to show how powerful they are, right? And how they have a strong ability when it comes to negotiations. Charlemagne was the main man in the early Middle Ages. He was, right? And to think that the Vikings were just given land by him, they had to be a threat, let's face it. Anyway, so the Normans here, William the Conqueror, right? This chunk of land just wasn't enough. Right, if you want to be known as the Conqueror, your nickname, you had to conquer something. Anyway, he said the Vikings, in any case, they get kind of a bad rap too. It's not like they just raided everybody and just stole all their food, which they did do their share of that. But they also are known for just joining into certain empires, joining into certain kingdoms, and getting involved with their politics, right? Getting involved with their religion, and actually just fusing themselves within these kingdoms. And a lot of times it wasn't even violent. So to think that the Vikings were just these bloodthirsty people, it wasn't all that way, okay? But in this case, for William the Conqueror, he said, listen, I want to make sure I can put my name on the map. The only way I'm going to do that is to sail across the English Channel and take this big old rock, England. And he does that. The only information we have about the conquering of England, the takeover in England, and let's face it, okay, England has already a natural means of defense. They got water surrounding them in all different areas. And when we get up to the 1940s, when we get to Hitler here, it's going to be even tough for him to take this route because of England's Navy, their Air Force. We'll get to that later down the line. But back then, a little bit more simplistic when it comes to just sending these Vikings across the English Channel. The only information, again, that we know of this battle, the Battle of Hastings, is from this tapestry. Right, this is literally just a kind of like a quilt that was sewn together depicting the Battle of Hastings and how the Normans took over England. Right, it's known that, well, when it comes to this takeover here, the King of England at the time, there was an arrow that went right through his eye. Right, there's actually a picture of it, a depiction of it. Right, sewn into this bayou tapestry. That's what it's called. It's actually held in Normandy today. And it was this arrow that just flies right into this King of England's eye. And they just said, this had to happen, right? Why would they just put that into the quilt? It's unbelievable. So they have this quilt, which is over, I want to say over 30 yards long. It's massive, it's huge, and it depicts the Battle of Hastings. Anyway, as William the Conqueror takes it over, what does he do? Well, as he takes over England, because he's in this foreign land, right? He wants to know exactly what he has control over. He wants to know the people that he's taking control over, right? He wants to know who owns the land, who has the means of growth of agriculture, who owns marketplaces, right? Who has money? So he creates this book. This book is called the Doomsday Book. It sounds terrible, sounds awful, sounds like the end of the world, doesn't it? It's not. It's literally just a census. That's it. Why is that important? Well, now you have a leader from another land, right, literally across the English Channel, trying to know a little bit about the land, right? So this is more of an idea of centralized government, right? He's bringing in all the means and understanding the whole land, right, which is very smart of him to do in order to protect it, right? He also goes on this huge, massive castle building project. He builds castles, right? These Norman castles, kind of like Mont and Bailey, but eventually becomes a little bit more sophisticated all throughout England, right? That's when we did that castle project, that assignment here, right? When you guys were looking up these pictures, a lot of them were created in England, thanks to this guy here, William the Conqueror. Anyway, this is going to establish a strong presence for England moving forward. And it's the only time, again, that they get invaded and taken over. Anyway, real quick, as we talked about William the Conqueror, the Normans, well, they spread their religion, they spread their ability all throughout Europe, right? They even partake within the Crusades. So as you're joining into the Crusades, you got to imagine a lot of these soldiers aren't actually going to go to the Holy Land. They go to parts of Italy, they go to parts of Germany, right? Modern day Germany. They go to parts of Spain, France, and they just intermingle within these areas. And as they do that, they bring their religion, right? Which at the time, a lot of them did convert to Christianity. They also brought their language, okay? So when it comes to the languages that we know all throughout Europe, right? These dialects, okay? These kingdoms that merge within a Norman language, Viking language, so to speak, right? Nordic language, right? It all starts to interfuse and create the languages we know as Italian, as Spanish, right? As German, as French, right? And you won't have that again without the Normans. So that's important to know. Real quick, the political system. Okay, I know we got some current events here. Geez. Anyway, the political system, the biggest thing here to know is that as William the Conqueror creates this Doomsday Book, right, and tries to understand a little bit more about the territory, the land he takes over. Again, it's not the end of the world, the Doomsday Book. I know it sounds like that, but he's just trying to get a census to know the population, who owns what land within England, and who can maybe contribute when it comes to taxes. Oh, geez. Okay, so you can see how this king is just really trying to get more of an understanding. Anyway, this follows through with his kids, Henry I and Henry II. And what they do is try to control England a little bit more. Geez, are you talking about absolute leadership? Yeah, kind of. So one of the biggest obstacles for them is making sure that they have an idea and control of the church, all right? So when it comes to the church, right, they are educated, the clergy, right, the people that are involved within this religious hierarchy, right? The king sees this as a threat, right? He says, listen, I am the only power here in England, not this church. So he tries to control what Henry II does. And in this case, you can see how this might actually cause some problems. And that cause a ripple effect here with the people actually respecting the church's order. So we'll mention more about that. They also go by common law. That's one of the biggest things here I want to make sure, common law. All right, so common law is just basically principles, guiding principles of a country based off previous court cases, right? So what is set precedent, right? So whenever you hear a precedent that's set, right, there's a court decision that you can refer to that already happened. So if something similar comes up down the line, it's like, you know what happened in this one court case that was very similar? Oh, we'll just use that as a means of common law, right? So common law isn't always written down. It's not like a constitution or anything like that. A lot of times it's just based off of previous court cases, previous court decisions. And as you can see, Henry I and II, they're setting and establishing a judicial system. Wow, that's important for the foundations of government. So you can see this transition happening. All right, I know I wanted to get to Parliament. I know I want to talk about the Magna Carta. The biggest thing here, guys, I wanted to get to the next slide, was that the Magna Carta will later be signed about 100 years later after Henry I and II. And King John trying to abuse his power in England. Well, the nobles, the barons, the lords, right? They weren't happy about it. They said, hey, you're just raising taxes at will, right? You're not even negotiating with us what's happening. So the Magna Carta, this is a great charter that's limiting the power of the king. The king has to follow a set rules and guidelines. It's not like he's just above the law here, Right? The Magna Carta, in a way, is kind of like a constitution. It's telling the people that the king is not above everybody, right? He has to follow the same amount of rules and laws as everybody else. And that's important because, well, you get limitations of an absolute monarch, right? These absolute leaders are not absolute. Jeez. And we'll talk about the kingdom here that starts to grow, starts to emerge, right? From the Normans. And that's later going to just create hostility between the French and the English. The 100 Years' War is coming. It's coming. All right. Anyway. Elena, you ready?